So another question we get from business owners is, does owning my own business complicate this divorce? And the simple answer is yes. The state of Washington is a community property state, and if you start a business during the marriage, they're going to have a community property interest in that business. For instance, as a lawyer, non-lawyers cannot own law firms, but they do have a community property interest in the value of the law firm. And so when you end up having to figure out either if you can't work with the person, which in normally a dissolution or a divorce, you don't want that person involved in your company in the day-to-day, then you have to get what's called a business valuation. And business valuations are done by experts, and experts cost money. And so what ends up happening is you'll get an evaluation for your business, and likely the other party will do the same. And then ultimately what it comes down to is a battle of the experts on whose business valuation is more reasonable than the other. Some of the factors include who did the evaluation. In my particular case, I had my business valued by a Spokane expert. The other party had it valued by a Seattle expert. Well, they're two very different socioeconomical places. And so therefore, if it would have got that far, the courts would have had to decide how much or who should have more weight to their evaluation. So yes, owning a business can significantly complicate a dissolution or a divorce. That being said, I think that owning a business during a divorce is not all that bad. So we get the question, well, how is a business valued in a divorce proceeding? And the simple answer is it's valued by experts. Generally what happens is you go find somebody that is familiar with your line of work in your geographical area. You have to provide them with all the financials. They do an evaluation and determine what they think the business is worth. The other side will do the same thing. They'll use the financials. They'll have an expert. They'll look at the socioeconomics of where your business is located, and they'll come up with a valuation. And then ultimately, those two valuations will become evidence in your case on what the value of the business actually is. And that will be for a court to determine on what it should be sold for or what its value is. Sometimes we get the question, can a prenup play a role in the protection of business assets? And the short answer is yes. But in order to do that, the parties have to decide on what the business value is. There's also the complication of, if the business is valued at one amount in 2025, and what may that amount be in 2030? And so it's very, very important that a prenup is very specific, that this value is based on a certain time, and have it locked up tight enough to where that question can come in the future and say, well, no, the business increased. Are prenups bulletproof? Absolutely not. But it's a good way to give you some peace of mind if you have a business and you're going to get married. Another question we get is, well, how do you handle business debt in a divorce? Generally, but not always, the debt will go along with the person that ends up with the business. Now, there are certain factors that come into play here. If you own a business but has significant debt, then you're probably not going to pay a lot to the other party to buy them out of that business. That all needs to be taken into account. So ultimately and generally, the assets go with the business, as do the debts. If you have any further questions about business ownership in divorce, please give us a call. At Johnson Law Firm, we fight for families and their fresh start.